Well, one thing that this reminds me of with seeing those waves is that we do have some marine warnings in effect for that particular area of Virginia Beach. A gale warning goes in effect for tonight. That's for winds up to 34 knots or higher, which is really around 35 to 40 miles per hour. So that's why we have those really big waves in crashing there on the Virginia Beach oceanfront. That's why swimming is very discouraged. Also, of course, you have high rip current risks and you have those really high breaking waves too.
It's not good for anyone. In fact, I know we had a cruise ship that was supposed to come in today to Half Moon in Norfolk, and that's been delayed till tomorrow because it's just not safe, even for those big cruise ships.
Right, and even if we don't have a gale warning tomorrow, would not be surprised if we have a small craft advisory still in place for that as well. One thing we also want to know is where the water is and which bodies of water are getting impacted by this, right? So we have local sounds. We also have those big bodies of water like the Atlantic and the Bay. So Cheryl, we were talking earlier about the Currituck Sound versus the Atlantic.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is something that I want to stress. In the Outer Banks, if you were on the sound side, for example, we saw Derek, he was in Duck, he was on the sound side earlier, and that's where the water is getting pushed out. So they're not dealing with that right now. It's on the ocean side of Duck. If you were on the Atlantic Ocean, winds are out of the northeast, and that is driving all of that water into the ocean-facing sides or the north or east-facing sides. Taylor.
Right, and so places like Kitty Hawk, as you get closer to southern shores, this is the area around here where we would see the biggest impacts from those north to northeast winds. As Cheryl was just saying, here's Duck, the water's being pushed this way towards Spot and Olds. So the drastic waves, the biggest waves, are going to be right here along NC-12, even going down again towards Kitty Hawk. But here's the big picture. We're still tracking this nor'easter, and it's still taking its time trying to get away from the Carolinas. This system has been sitting just to the east or northeast of Charleston, South Carolina, for the past 12 hours. It's a very slow moving system, but I'm also watching for another area of low pressure to develop along this warm front, and that will also strengthen the system. But good news is a lot of the rain associated with that low pressure system that was well to the north has pushed to the north. There is some rain, though, still associated with the center of low pressure in places like Charleston, where it's been raining over and over for the past day or so. Same with eastern North Carolina. So we're going to start to see some of that rainfall move slowly to the north over the course of the next hour or two. Now, I wanted to show you this satellite and radar without our surface map. And our surface map shows where the low pressure system is, denoted by that huge red L we just saw. But you can actually see how strong this system is because of the spinning nature of the cloud cover. That's that center of low pressure. That is the nor'easter, and it's just to the south and west of the Outer Banks. Right now here locally, we're seeing a big break in the rain. Most of that rain action moving to the north over the Bay. Some places still getting a small shower near the eastern shore, also in the northern neck, and just now exiting the middle peninsula. Near Williamsburg, also watching for a stray shower there, but the south side, it is just very cloudy and breezy at this point. And same for northeastern North Carolina. Elizabeth City, Ahoskie staying dry, but you can see the next band of rain about to move in over the course, again, of the next few minutes, where that's actually associated with that center of low pressure. So Avon, Rodanthe, Gum Neck, Alligator, seeing some spotty showers there, but anytime it's not raining over the course of the next 2 days, we will be seeing some very cloudy conditions and also breezy conditions. Wind gusts around the eastern shore now near Wachapreague up to 45 miles per hour, near Hampton 38 miles per hour. On the CBBT, wind gusts up to 38 miles per hour. Wind restrictions are in place, and we can see those wind restrictions continuing into tomorrow morning as well. On the south side, we're seeing wind gusts up to 45 to 50 miles per hour. Cape Henry, 46 mile per hour winds right now for those wind gusts, 39 for Naval Station Norfolk and the airport. As you get further inland, seeing some places, seeing some gusts, but just not as strong as the coast, and that's the trend. The closer you are to the center of low pressure, the gustier those winds will be. So in Wakefield down to Franklin, wind gusts up to 20 to 30 miles per hour. Recent wind gusts in Elizabeth City over the past 30 minutes clocked at 51 miles per hour. And that is why we do have those wind alerts in place for today. Around the Outer Banks, we are seeing some wind gusts up to about 35 to 50 miles per hour as well. So a cloudy, breezy, and spotty shower kind of day. Wind alerts in place right now. The Virginia Beach oceanfront, including really all the city of Virginia Beach, down through the Outer Banks, we have been downgraded to a wind advisory. So wind gusts up to about 45 miles an hour. But still along the eastern shore, a high wind warning remains in place through tonight through 10 p.m. for winds up to 55 to 60 mile per hour gusts. So still a very breezy day here across the Middle Peninsula, eastern South Side, eastern Northeastern North Carolina, but then very breezy conditions ongoing for places around the eastern shore. Also, we still have that coastal flood warning in effect for today. That is going to be for the majority of the South Side and all of the peninsulas for those northeast winds, very strong northeast winds, pulling in those higher tides and paired with those king tides we have in place as well. Again, high tides are going to start to come up in the course of the next hour or so, with peak tides around 1:45 to 3:30 today. Now, we are tracking this low pressure system, and some may be questioning why this is not giving a name on the Atlantic Hurricanes name list for the 2025 season, even though it's giving us similar impacts as a tropical storm. Cheryl, let's break down why this is happening and why this did not receive a name.
Taylor, that's a very good question. A lot of people are talking about this. We are still in hurricane season. Hurricane season officially runs through November 30th. So why is this not tropical in nature? I'm going to break it down for you. Extratropical cyclone, that is the fancy meteorological name for basically a storm system over land, okay? Tropical cyclone, that is the fancy name for a storm that forms over the water. Tropical cyclone encompasses tropical depressions, tropical storms, hurricanes, encompassing all of them. Let's break this down. So extratropical cyclone, which includes a nor'easter, which is what we are dealing with, has fronts associated with it, and also is very stretched out and elongated. A tropical cyclone is more symmetrical, more pretty looking per se on a weather map. Also, extratropical cyclones are fueled by temperature differences, whereas tropical cyclones are fueled by heat from warm ocean waters. Temperatures off Virginia Beach right now only around 70 degrees. You have to have ocean temperatures 80 degrees or greater to have tropical cyclones start to form. That's just one of those ingredients that you need for that. Finally, the strongest winds are away from the center of the storm in a regular storm system. For a tropical cyclone, you'll find those strongest winds near the center or in that eye wall of the storm. So that is how you break things down. That's why we're dealing with a plain old storm system or a nor'easter. It's called a nor'easter because it's tracking up the eastern seaboard. Winds around low pressure go counterclockwise. We're seeing persistent winds coming in out of the northeast, which is why we are seeing so much extra water at that high tide cycle. So speaking of which, we're talking about the peak high tides for this afternoon. In Smithfield around 3:30 today. For Sewell's Point, just after 2 o'clock, same thing in Yorktown. Lynn Haven there around 2 o'clock as well. And finally, 1:30 in Kipto Peak. Fort Monroe, a little less with moderate tidal flooding, also right around 2 o'clock. Now, I want to explain these numbers here. For example, where you see Sewell's Point, it says 6.5. That does not mean 6.5 feet of floodwaters, okay? We're looking at the river. So there's a gauge in the river, there's a reference point. That's how high that water level is from that reference point. So 6.5 feet. Now, some of that water is going to spill out of the river. It's going to go into the creeks and the streams. And some of that water is also coming in from the Atlantic Ocean and the bay. It's causing all of that overwash or overflow to come out, and that's what's going to flood some of your roads, your parking lots, and your fields along those waterways. So that's what that means. Move your cars to higher ground if you haven't already. Still have a little bit of time, but that water is starting to come up, and you'll notice that water coming in. You're going, oh, where did this come from? If you don't look out the window or don't go outside for a couple hours and then you do, you'll see all that water there. So Sewell's Point, high tide again just after 2 o'clock, major tidal flooding. Next tide cycle for your high tide, moderate in the middle of the night, 2:30 a.m. After that, the winds start to ease, low pressure starts to move away from us, so things will start to improve. For Lynn Haven, could see a couple major tidal flooding events this afternoon and also again tonight, and then things start to get better. Yorktown, major and then moderate, finally just nuisance as we head into Tuesday. It's going to remain breezy for the next couple of days, so that's why we are seeing these prolonged high tides across the region. In addition, we're dealing with the king tides, which are higher than normal high tide values. And finally at Duck, this is occurring right about now. Major tidal flooding in some parts. This is Duck Pier, and then also parts of the Outer Banks right along the ocean there. I know we're sending Derek. He's out looking for some ocean overwash on Highway 12. Should be seeing that in spots right about now. And then things start to get better. May see another peak as we head into Monday afternoon before finally water levels start to come down. Now, talking about the winds certainly have been howling across Hampton Roads. Going to see more of that as we head throughout the afternoon today. Could still see some wind gusts to 50, maybe even 60 miles an hour, especially up on the eastern shore as that low starts to really get going and ramping up this afternoon. For the rest of us, could see wind gusts 40, even 50 miles an hour. As we go throughout tonight, you may have some trouble sleeping. You might hear that wind still howling out there. 40 to 50 mile an hour gusts, 35 to 40, and again, still near 50 across parts of the eastern shore. As we head into your Monday, not quite as bad, but still breezy. Still having winds gusting to 40 miles an hour in some locations. Heading into Monday and then finally into Tuesday. Still breezy, but things will start to slowly ease. All right, so to summarize everything for today, 70 degrees, temps may actually start to slip a little bit into the 60s. Occasional rain showers, yes, we're seeing that tidal flooding. Winds 20 to 30 sustained, gusts to 40, 50 miles an hour, maybe even 60 miles an hour on the eastern shore. So just keep that in mind for today. Just hunker down this afternoon, especially as those tides start to come in. Your 5-day forecast looks like this. Things getting a little better as we head into the second half of Monday. Tuesday, not bad at all. Wednesday, how about that? Sunshine and 71. We'll see a dry cold front come through, cooling us down a little bit, may even drop into the 40s, even some upper 30s possible in some of our inland areas going into your Friday. But then we bounce back to near 70 with sunshine for the weekend. Today is the busiest day of the next 7. Eugene, let's go back to you.